Brought to you by Express Care Health and Skin Center. Get in, get out, get better.
Welcome back, everybody, from commercial break. I hope you're feeling a little bit better and more confident about labs, and that is all due to this lovely woman over there, because Dr. Jitka Lom from Express Care is helping us understand exactly what labs are for. Doesn't exactly take away from having to get a shot, but at least now we know exactly what's being extracted from that and where they're going. So we have some more questions. These are from our users, way smarter people than I am right now, so these are good questions, and they're going to challenge you. You ready?
Ready.
All right, here we go. Question number 1, gentlemen in the back. Dr. Lom, what are false positive and false negative test results?
That's a really great question. So false positive is when your test turns out with some result that's usually unpleasant or not a very pleasant result, but it's false. And all labs, any test that you do with a lab can be a false positive, because people aren't perfect, lab tests aren't perfect, machines aren't perfect, and sometimes mistakes will be made. Even if everything is done correctly, you can still have an abnormal result, which is not true. Here's an example. You do a urine test, and it turns out that you actually have chlamydia where you actually physically don't have chlamydia. This can turn out as a false positive test. So then there could be a confirmatory test done, like a swab, where we would recheck it and see, do you really have chlamydia? And then that would either confirm or deny. And so we do that with HIV testing and with other tests, even biopsies. You can have a biopsy of skin, for example, and it can say, yes, you have melanoma or skin cancer, and then they send it to another pathologist. They look at it again. Turns out, no, not really, that was a mistake. Sometimes people's lab samples get mixed up as well. That's another thing that can happen, even with everything that we try to do to make things perfect as far as not mixing things up, but it can still happen sometimes. So that's a false positive, where the reality of the test does not match the person. And a false negative is where the opposite happens, where the test is normal but the person's actually sick with some disease. And an example with that would be a biopsy where, for example, with a breast lump, where the needle goes in but just misses the lump, doesn't get quite in there. And so the result will come back, you don't have breast cancer, and a few years later it turns out, well, actually you did. So these are false positive and false negative. And any test that we do, we have a general idea of what the rate is for that false positive and false negative. So for example, when we do a flu test, which is a swab, or a strep test, which is a swab, we can know, okay, with this test we're about 95% accurate, meaning false positive, false negative is only a 5%, the rest is 95% accurate. If you have a test that's got a very poor rating, it's not a very good test, right? So that's kind of a little rundown on that.
All right, excellent. Well, yeah, and you, of course, you mentioned, it is possible to over-test or under-test.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, so I guess moderation is key in knowing what you're doing.
And not relying overly on tests, but looking more at the human being, at the person. Does this match what their situation is?
The eyeball test as well. All right. Question number 2 is, why is it important, Dr. Lom, to know levels of electrolytes?
Well, electrolyte levels might be important for like a dialysis patient especially, or for a patient who's in the emergency department, or a heart patient, because the electrolytes, those are for example, our potassium, our sodium, our chloride. These are elements that we have in our bloodstream, and they keep our body functioning, our metabolism functioning at a proper level. And let's say your potassium is very high, you're going to have some bad heart problems. If it's very low, you're going to be very weak. These are different things that we test for, generally in the hospital or in a dialysis situation. For a young, healthy person going around playing sports, drinking electrolyte drinks, it's really not going to make any difference to you at all to know how you're doing, because you're healthy. You know, people talk a lot about replenishing their electrolytes. This is only necessary with extreme exercise under extreme conditions, because your body, one of the amazing things about our body is that it's always geared towards what we call homeostasis. That means going back to a state of normal. So whatever happens to you, your body's going to bring you back into balance as much as it can. That's one of the most amazing things about our body.
Excellent. Okay, and this is question number 3. This is going to be the last one. Why is it necessary to fast before a blood sugar test? This is the one.
That's a great question.
This is what people get so irritated about. You mean I can't eat and drink for 12 hours prior?
Yes. So the fasting should be done from usually around midnight. Nothing to eat or drink. You can still have some water to hydrate, that won't hurt, but you shouldn't eat or drink anything before doing a morning time blood test. The reason for that is because the foods that we eat affect our labs, and depending, let's say you ate a donut or something very sweet, your blood sugar would go up and we'd think you were diabetic when you're not. So the reference range is based on a fasting sample. So if you have eaten, you're going to fall out of the reference range. We're going to think there's something wrong when there isn't. So don't lie to your lab technician.
And you know, give them a Christmas present too. You know, like if you've been to, if you had to submit labs and everything, send them a Christmas card. You know, bake them some cookies.
People always complain when the lab technician gives them a bruise or hurts them or something, but forget about all the times that they get poked and it's a perfect shot, and they just, you know, it's amazing. They stick the needle into your arm and they can sort of see through your skin and get a nice result without giving you much of a bruise.
And the best ones always have the best conversation because
they're quite pleasant.
They distract you from, you know, from the pain.
Yeah.
All right, well, Dr. Lom, thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Thanks as always. All right, stay tuned. We are back after this.